Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience live. It's March 25th, 2012. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Don Baker.
Hey, good
how
to be
you
here.
doing?
I'm doing all right.
Cool. It's a really cool weekend. I'm here in Austin when I could be in D.C. Yesterday was the Reason Rally, the largest gathering of secular individuals in the nation's history, as far as we're aware, anyway. I didn't see a ton of mainstream news coverage on the rally itself, but I did find a number of articles online, and a couple of the people who were there did some quick updates. I'm sure we'll hear more about what happened in the coming week, but all the reports that I heard were incredibly positive. The number of people in attendance ranged anywhere from 8,000 to 15,000, depending on who you listen to. One of the articles talked about how the people there was a diverse representation there. It was about 50% female. There were quite a few people of color there, and so I think I don't know that we've completely turned a corner, but I know that we're doing better in making sure that we get the plurality of atheists represented within the community as well. Right now, as we speak, the American Atheist National Convention is going on in D.C. It was immediately followed pretty much the Reason Rally. Obviously, I'm not up there for that either, and I don't have any news coming in from it, but hopefully by next week we'll hear more about what went on at both of them. There'll be some announcements. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love doing this show. I wish almost that I could go to all the events and do the show too. Unfortunately, they end up coming in on the weekend. Hey, I just got a text message from Dave Silverman.
Oh boy.
Who is at the Reason Rally and should be way too busy to answer my text message. But I was wanting to know if I could actually announce this or not, and I just got permission. And that is, in 2013, American Atheists will be having their 50th anniversary. And the 2013 American Atheist National Convention will be here in Austin, Texas.
Awesome.
That means all of you have 2 excuses, if not 3 or 4 more, to come to Austin, hang out, visit the show, meet some of the ACA folks, and come down for the American Atheist Convention. I'll be there. I think most of the people involved in the show will be there. I've been really excited about this for like 3 weeks now. I've been wanting to just come to Austin. And Dave's announcing it at the convention right now. And told me I could go ahead and say so on today's show. So we're looking forward to that. If I had money to bet, I'd bet it's on Easter weekend because that's when it almost always is. So look forward to that, which I'm going to skip past the regular announcements today, other than mentioning that you can go to the website, www.atheist-community.org, and you can send email to tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself, the co-host, and the people behind the scenes as well. And also to note that there's a calendar of events, frequently asked questions page, other information up on the ACA page where you can get...
Oh, and dinner, too.
Yeah, I'm getting a dinner. And after this show is over, those of us involved in the show get together for dinner at El Arroyo. The address will be right there, 1624 West 5th Street, 5th and Campbell.
With us. Yeah.
Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come. You don't have to be a member to come to this event, but if you're coming down to preach, proselytize, or provoke, just pick up the phone and dial the number. That'll be on the screen shortly. But before we get started, while we're speaking about conventions, I've got Bill Ligertwood on the phone from Atheist Alliance International. How are you, Bill?
I'm just fine, Matt. That's great news. Congratulations.
Thanks. Well, I'm thrilled. I can't wait I want Austin to be the atheist mecca of all kinds of things next year. We're having the Texas Free Thought Convention is going to be here.
Had a big pilgrimage last weekend. Yeah.
But you're putting together a rather significant convention yourself, aren't you?
Well, yes, I'm trying, because I want Kamloops, British Columbia to be the mecca.
Well,
you can be the American mecca, and we'll be the Canadian mecca.
Fair enough. I thought we were going to be at odds on this, but right. I'll go for one in each country.
It's a holy war.
Yeah, we're putting on an event. It's the second one we've done. We did one, obviously, about a year ago called Imagine No Religion, and this one is called Imagine No Religion 2.
Awesome.
Believe it or not. It's taking place from May 18th to 20th up here in British Columbia. That's actually a long weekend for us in Canada. Mm-hmm. So it works out really well for everyone coming. I'll just run through some of the speakers for you. Let's see. Let's start with August Berkshire. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yes.
That past vice president of AAI. He's one of the speakers. Seth Andrews is going to be here. Dr. Andy Thompson, who is with the Richard Dawkins Foundation. He will be here. Desiree Schell, she's been at TAM for the last couple of years in a row, and she's actually Canadian out of Edmonton, Alberta. She will be joining us. Christopher DiCarlo, he's another philosopher, very well-educated guy. He's out of Ontario, so another Canadian.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited about Chris. He and I have been exchanging emails, and I've been a little lax on it because I have other things going on, but we're going to work together on something in Kamloops. So
Yes, you are, and
excited.
we're really excited about that. Miriam Namazi will also be joining us. We're pretty excited about that. She's coming all the way from London, England, just to do this convention. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. A woman by the name of Joyce Arthur, another Canadian. She's the executive director of Canada's National Pro-Choice Group. So she'll be doing a talk, and we'll also be doing a panel on that subject of abortion. Then we have P.Z. Myers, who everybody knows.
Who's that?
And then we have, who's this guy? Oh, yeah, Matt Dillahunty.
Oh, are you
Apparently
sure?
he does a TV show on community television in Texas.
I heard he's kind of an ass.
Sometimes.
Anyway, we're looking forward to meeting you, Matt. It's going to be a lot of fun. And our keynote speaker is Lawrence Krauss.
Outstanding.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've been so terrible about posting my personal schedule until like the day before I'm heading up to an event. So I took some time and listed out my full schedule on the blog, on Facebook, and on yesterday's Nonprofits. And the Imagine No Religion 2 conference is one that I'm actually really looking forward with because I've got like 2 roles to play. I'm going to have to talk about something, and then Chris Carl and I are doing a team debate at the convention as well. So,
That's right. It's a tag team. It's a tag team cage match.
yes. I am very, very thankful to have such good support in my corner. Not that I have any fear not that I have any fear of the God-believing opponents, but on the off chance that I get stumped, I'm incredibly confident that I can just look at Chris and he will jump right in.
Yeah, I don't think you have anything to worry about there. Anyway, like I said, we're really excited about the whole thing. We've got almost 200 people signed up already. So there are a few seats left, but not that many. People can get information about it at imaginenoreligion, all one word, .com.
All right.
And they can register there, and they can get a hotel there, and they can do all that stuff. And, we'd love to have more of our American friends and more people. I know you have a lot of viewers in Canada as well, but
Yeah.
we'd love to have more
tell
of
us the date
our
again, Bill.
American friends come up here where we don't have separation of church and state.
And the dates again, May 18th to 20th?
So, yeah, May 18th to 20th. The actual debate event is the 18th, and then the convention runs the 19th and the 20th. And if you've never been to one of these before, I would just encourage your viewers, go to it because it's an amazing experience, as I'm sure you will attest to, Matt.
Absolutely.
The first one that I went to was in Burbank in 2009, just kind of on a lark. I had no idea what I was getting into, and I came home and started this group and put on our own event. I mean, it really is an epiphany. So,
Yeah, a lot of the talks from the first Imagine No Religion conference have become incredibly popular on YouTube. There was a lot of really just interesting and thoughtful talks that went on, along with some discussions. There were people that we heard from. Was Ramachandran at Imagine No Religion? The first
Who?
V.S. Ramachandran?
No.
No. I'm thinking of a different talk that he gave. But the first Imagine No Religion conference, you can find the videos from it online, and that'll kind of give you a little taste of some of what you might encounter in Kamloops, British Columbia in May.
That's right. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you, Matt. I can't wait.
Well, thanks. I'm looking forward to meeting you and to all of the Canadian fans of the show who happen to show up, and anybody else who wants to come along to that. There's a lot of, just outstanding speakers that are going to be there, and I'm fortunate to be able to go up and interact with people. It's
Well, we
these
like
are the
to
events
have,
I love to do.
we like to have the Maharishis from one Mecca visit the other Mecca.
Yes, and we'll do what we can to see if we can get you down here in Austin at some point.
I'd love to. I actually have sort of in-laws that live in Austin.
There you go.
So yeah, I'd love to come down. But yeah, when you come up here, we'll do some competitive mecha-ing.
Okie doke. Sounds like a plan. Thanks so much for calling in, Bill. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in a month and a half or so, 2 months.
Okay, man. Take care, and thank you.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that's a lot of what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
ACA has a lot of stuff going on as well, in addition to our Sunday morning meetings, which we've changed the location on to Cafe Express.
That's right.
We also have the monthly lecture series. We have happy hour on Thursday. There's a Godless Gamers board game, card game night on Mondays. There's craft night on Fridays. There's a party coming up this Saturday. We've got
lecture on the 1st from the ACLU.
Yeah, and we've got our annual bat cruise and
all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
If your group's not doing this much stuff and you're sitting around going, holy crap, we're 11 minutes into this show and he hasn't stopped talking about all the stuff that the Austin community is doing, not my problem. Kick your group in its ass. Do more stuff. We need everybody. Actually, Greta made a really good point today or last night after the Reason Rally, which is one of her hopes is that the Reason Rally encourages people, even those people who are already active, to do one thing to further the atheist community, the atheist goals that they hadn't done. I haven't decided exactly what that one thing is going to be for me yet, but I encourage everybody else to do something. Even if it's as simple as getting together and having drinks and discussion with somebody, a book club, movie night, who knows?
Meet up.
There's any number of things you can do. Pub crawl.
There you go.
That's
another event.
So April 14th, as I've just been reminded, here in Austin, Texas, we're having the pub crawl. There's information up at the website. We'll be meeting at the Dog and Duck at 7. And then walking the streets. We'll crawl back. We start off walking usually. But you can find more information on the website for that event as well. That's it for the announcements. Let's let Don get to his actual topic.
My topic today. Yeah, I've been doing a long series on the failures of Christianity, and there's so many of them. I'm going to be doing this for a long time, and hopefully it begs the question of
the rest of your life.
How can Christians, with their omniscient God helping them out, fail so often? And the answer is there is no such God, so the failures are expected. So previously I've talked about the failure of the Christian-based abortion policy, the failure of the genocide of the Jews, the failure of the Catholic pedophilia scandal, the failure of prayer, the failure of the Second Coming, and I'm just on a roll now. We're going to talk today about the failure of social engineering. Well, what is social engineering? It's a way of trying to shape the popular culture, popular attitude, and behaviors of people in a culture via whatever means. And often it's done via government or whatever. And so, for example, we have the Great Leap Forward in China was with Mao Zedong. Was a big social engineering thing, and the war on drugs here in the U.S. is another one. So Christian social engineering is based on kind of a utopian idealism based on various interpretations of the Bible, and it's foisted on the public by religious zealots and followed by their ignorant followers. So there's generally, you'll see, and today we'll have 3 examples, and we'll talk about the themes now. There's an attempt to address problems that the churches can't solve on their own. They can't solve in their own ranks, so they have to co-opt the more powerful government in order to make their reign in their ranks. And at the end of the day, there's going to be a societal level failure from which the churches have to back off from, and there's much harm done in the interim, of course. And then the failures are either later forgotten or spun to be not that big a deal for later generations. So also there's also sometimes some secular silver linings from these failures. So today I want to talk about the witch hunts from the 15th to 18th century, which was this social engineering project to get rid of witches. Big problem. We have the U.S. prohibition in the early 20th century and suppressing gays, which is winding down today. It's been going on a long time and seems to be kind of petering out. And we'll save some other social engineering failures for other episodes. So, killing witches. In the Bible we have, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live" in Exodus 22:18. And this is allegedly a first-person quote from the yammering God of Yahweh who is laying down the law in Exodus. And it's I consider one of the most evil passages in the Bible. And that's because the author had no clue that there is no such thing as witches. There never have been, never will be. There's only people who claim to have magical powers, but none of them really do. So because of this passage, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed over the centuries because of this passage, and people who have been accused of witchcraft, and there's no proof of anything or the other. Well, this whole movement really got kicked off by Pope Innocent VIII, who was looking for something to blame for the crop failures and famine of the so-called Little Ice Age in the 1400s, and so he didn't have any God to tell him any otherwise, so he blamed the witches, and he commissioned a thing called the Malleus Maleficarum, or the Witch's Hammer, which was a document, a made-up treatise on witches and that he commissioned. And he tried to prove through this document that witches existed and they had to be exterminated and killed. And this is considered probably one of the most horrific documents in human history, and you can go find that online. So the period of the 14th century, the same pope started the Inquisition to carry out this. And this became known as the Burning Times, in which witchcraft was a capital offense and tried through the courts. And witches were often burned or crushed because of the biblical prohibitions against bloodshed. Isn't that sweet? Okay, and this was also both a Protestant and Catholic enterprise, despite their religious difference. So neither one had any clue, neither one had any God that was going to tell them other than there's witches out there and they got to get rid of them. These trials and such were often misogynistic. They had erotic undertones, and this is not surprising coming from a repressed male-dominated hierarchy. So not surprisingly, they were mostly out to get women and girls, and they were often tortured, and they were tortured in part to get the names of their accomplices. So they'd find somebody who was accused, they'd take them in, and they'd torture them, and eventually the tortured person would confess or say something that their torturer wanted to hear, and this was an unfailing means of demonstrating the validity of such accusations. So it fed into the confirmation bias of the torturers, and then this whole thing became an exponential thing because they would name people, and those people would be brought in, and these sorts of things. And after the confession, there was even more torture to release the demons before the death of the accused. So this was just a really wonderful time. So the investigations and tortures were conducted at the expense of the tortured, just to add insult to injury, often until all their property was seized. So the prosecution of witches became a big business, with the accusers and such reaping the financial gains of whoever they were torturing. So it was basically a big expense account scam. And people who were members of the tribunal got extra money for each witch burned. And so this was institutionalized mass murder based on the good book. So biblical justifications for this, well, the Pope Innocent VIII himself commented that the abominations and enormities in question remain, if they remain unpunished, then the souls of multitude face eternal damnation. So this has had to be done to get everybody to heaven. William Blackstone, who was a celebrated English jurist, hopefully of sound mind, thought that witches was important. He said, to deny the possibility, nay, the actual existence of witchcraft and sorcery is at once flatly to contradict the revealed word of God in the various passages of both the Old and New Testament. So, and John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, said, giving up of witchcraft is in effect giving up of the Bible. So witches are very important. So this was a very dark time in human history, and the mass hysteria largely played itself out by the 1700s, roughly through 300 years of horrific ignorance and really awful crimes against humanity. It ended through the secular morality largely flourishing in the Renaissance, when that came to happen. And I think that the main silver lining is that this unfortunately made it to the United States in the so-called Salem witch trials, and the silver lining here is that spectral evidence, or the idea that testimony based on the accused witch's spirit appearing in a dream or vision was then disallowed from court proceedings. And so today our courts try based on real evidence rather than made up bullshit. So this one change made our U.S. laws more fair and equitable, and I think the Salem witch trials were known by the founders, and many may have been a partial motivation for the church-state separation, because they saw the horrors of the church and state getting together on this. So that's witches. Oh, another final comment. If you think about this Bible quote I gave at the beginning, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live," and if you're a believer, I'd like to know, who is it that wrote this phrase? If it was the Christian God, then he's either a complete idiot, because there never have been any witches. He's either a complete idiot or he's cruelly sadistic. So either way, there's not a God worth worshiping. If it's written by a human, what makes you think anything else in the Bible is true? So think about that, Christians, and what makes you think you're going to heaven given this miserable failure? Okay, let me talk about prohibition a little bit. This is moving on to the 20th century in the United States. Prohibition was mandated by the 18th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, making it a U.S. law. So this prohibited the United States the sale of alcohol. And Americans realized their mistake, and in December 1933, they created the 23rd Amendment and got rid of it. So it was a giant episode of mistake. So the time in between was marked by rampant corruption and lawlessness. We had the mobs flourishing, vast criminal enterprises, mob wars. The use of alcohol did decrease, but many people were happy to ignore the law and say, "Screw you! I'm gonna have alcohol anyway." And so we had the speakeasies and the gin runners and all that good stuff.
And moonshine.
Moonshine, homemade alcohol.
We are all very grateful.
Corn squeezins, yeah, all that good stuff. Right. So a lot of folks learned how to make alcohol. So okay. So the biblical, or the justification from this came from, in North America, the moralistic convictions of pietic Protestants who were motivated by the Great Awakening movement in the United States that emphasized holiness and perfectionism. And drunkenness was considered and condemned as an abuse of God's given gift. The drink itself was not looked at as culpable, but any more than food to blame for the sin of gluttony. But it was considered an excess and a personal indiscretion. And so when religious controls failed over the masses in these pews, they had to change the laws to try to get their laws passed. And,
I hate to interrupt you.
Yes.
Because I know you have a bunch of stuff to talk about, and there's a limited time on the show. But that actually mirrors something that I think I've talked about a couple of times in the last few weeks, which is, for example, the Catholic Church has been utterly ineffectual at getting its parishioners to stop using contraception.
Yes.
And so
I was hoping that somebody would see the connection. So great, keep going.
Yeah, so 98% or so of Catholic women are actually using contraception, despite the fact that the Catholic Church is vehemently opposed to this. Mm-hmm. And so they've been so ineffectual at it that now, when we're actually proposing legislation on health care that covers all preventive care, which would include contraception, the Catholic Church and others are coming up saying, "Oh, no, that's a violation of our religious liberties."
Throwing a big pissy fit about it, right?
And there are people who would like to actually outlaw this.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
Right.
I'm just guessing.
So why don't they pray to their God? Because that would supposedly work, right?
I think so.
That's what
I don't know why they ever
propose.
propose any legislation. Why don't you just get 2 or 3 people in a room, pray for God to fix stuff?
That's right.
Sounds like a plan.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I covered that prayers of failure. Yeah.
Oh. Sorry.
Okay. So the prohibition was a failure too, right? The fact that we had to reverse it was, it's a failure.
The fact that we did reverse it, though, makes me optimistic that we'll come to our sanity on some of these.
Yeah, eventually. It takes a while, right? We have to kind of run into the wall a few times. So today we still have some remnants of our blue laws where you can't buy alcohol on Sunday because they want you into church. I think that perhaps alcohol and drugs is seen as competition for religion, which are all escapes from reality. So.
I mean, setting aside Jews, obviously, their Sabbath being Saturday, you'd think that they wouldn't want people to buy alcohol like on Saturday.
Right.
So, we don't want you to buy alcohol on Saturday so that you're sober and able to come to church on Sunday.
Right, not hungover.
But letting them buy it on Saturday but not Sunday. What do you care if they buy it on Sunday? Letting, after church, they can just go out and get loaded and miss work on Monday.
Right. So today we still have this war on drugs, which is much the same thinking and much the same results. We still have black markets fueling lawlessness, corruption, violence. So this same sort of thinking still goes on. So I think the failure is still going on. But there is a silver lining to the prohibition. The gin running of the 20s led to a cottage industry of souping up cars that looked like normal cars on the outside, but they were all souped up on the inside. And the idea was not to draw attention, but you could outrun the police, and they were called moon runners. And that became popular to race on the weekends, and eventually this grew into a national group like NASCAR. So we got NASCAR out of this.
See? You see how evil prohibition was?
Right. And the irony is that nobody ever drinks at NASCAR events.
Yeah. I have no objection to NASCAR. That was a cheap shot joke. I just wish they'd turn right occasionally. It would be fun. Yeah. I mean, most people are watching for the wrecks
anyway. Sometimes they have those serpentine tracks. Anyway. They turn right every now and then. Okay, the last one is the gay.
Oh.
Uh-oh. The Catholic Church for centuries has had no luck at all getting rid of the gays in their ranks. And they've tried all their godly powers against the gay, and it just doesn't work. So they conclude, mistakenly, that this gay thing must be really evil because they can't fix it. Instead of concluding that their magic is pointless. So they've decided to go after the gays, and these battle lines have been drawn a long time ago, and they've decided, well, there's no financial loss going after gays because they're not making any new tithers that are going to tithe to the church. And these allegedly celibate priests who are themselves sexual deviants through celibacy get a free pass because they're saving souls, supposedly. Now, needless to say, persecution of gays doesn't benefit gay people, and so there's some harm there. This has kind of created a hate business. So after the Stonewall riots in 1969, there's a bunch of ambitious preachers in northwest Texas who figured out that this gay issue brought people out in droves to come to to fill up these football stadiums in panhandle towns like Tulia and Clarendon, Higgins and Perryton, and they were all there to hear this message of hate. And the crusade went national in 1977, courtesy of Anita Bryant. I don't know if people remember that. He was the perky spokesperson for Coca-Cola, Tupperware, Florida orange juice, and she parlayed her Miss America pageant runner-up status into a career singing wholesome family music, but boy, when this gay thing came along, she shot up in the national spotlight. She created a group called the Save Our Children, and the idea was that gays are out to get your kids, which of course is a lie, and she took her message on the road. So Anita Bryant showed that gay bashing could bring in some real money when other issues such as abortion, communism, slamming feminists just weren't making any money for religion.
Ironically, you know who's actually out to get your kids?
Who
the church.
The church.
Vacation Bible School.
Oh yeah. And all these little programs to get your kids to pray in school and these sorts of things. Yep. So the primary tactic here...
And one of them is called, like, Meet at the Pole, which... See you at the pole, thank you. Yeah, which is actually about the flagpole and not
any other pole.
Not the other pole.
Okay. So the main way this gay thing has been carried out is the gay failure has been carried out through propaganda. So the Save Our Children's primary tactic was fear-mongering. Gay people were sick, perverted, twisted, and a threat to American families. Anita Bryant said, homosexuals cannot reproduce, so they must recruit, and they freshen their ranks. To freshen their ranks, they must recruit the youth of America. And then later, when the AIDS crisis came, the propaganda was raised to new heights. Paul Cameron, who I'll talk about in a minute, claimed that gay people had unleashed an octopus of infection spreading across the world and had done so on purpose. Jerry Falwell put it in simpler terms. He called AIDS the gay plague. Tony Perkins from the Family Research Council said, "What's at stake here is the foundation of our society, not only of America, but all of Western civilization."
Yeah, talking about the recruiting thing, I don't remember being recruited to the heterosexual group.
You don't remember? They're so good that they must have fooled you. Yeah, they must have fooled you.
I wish I could find the people who recruited me to the heterosexual agenda.
Okay.
That's kind of disturbing.
Right.
What if I was actually gay?
And you got recruited to the wrong team.
Maybe I should see about getting fixed. One of your reparative therapies. Right. Can I go to a nightclub and assless chaps and see if I'm better?
Okay.
All right, I've distracted from your message. I'm sorry.
I'm wrapping up here.
It's a good day.
Okay. Now, you can't talk about anti-gay propaganda without talking about Paul Cameron, who is the chief propagandist on this issue. And there's a good article about him on the Southern Poverty Law Center website called The Fabulist. So has been funded for decades by the conservative Christian organizations, and he's manufactured reams of hate-filled research, in quotes, in fraudulent scientific, in quotes, journals where you can get published at $27.50 a page. So there's kind of a low standard of
That's kind of like
research.
Peer review.
Right.
A little bit.
So he started out with some credentials. He actually has a degree, but every organization he's ever claimed to be part of has disowned him. Pretty much every group has said, we have nothing to do with this guy, and we disavow him. So he's become, over time, a liability to these Christian groups because he's such an obvious fraud and such an obvious, one wonders if he doesn't protest too much. Anyway, so they downplay his research while still quoting him, unfortunately. He's uncited. And to this day, Christians don't have much against gays except the Bible and their lies. So that's all they got.
To be fair, they may not actually know that they're quoting him. The way these memes kind of take on a life of their own,
right?
Throughout the I went and did a quick Google search on what's wrong with being gay, and I didn't bother to see where it came from. I just picked the first source that agreed with what I already believed.
Right. Yeah, that happens a lot. And there is a lot of biblical justification. I'm going to skip that, but it starts out in Genesis. Supposedly, the town of Sodom was filled with sodomites, and the word sodomy has slowly become synonymous with male copulation, although it didn't start out that way. Anyway, and there's a bunch of New Testament things as well. Paul was very much against gays. But the failure here is that gays have become accepted in the U.S. society, and you can see this going on as in today's terms, right? The sodomy law was overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court, and it was called by one of the justices as a silly law. Hate crimes laws have been created to protect gays and other hated minorities. Sexual orientation is now part of most national protections. Don't ask, don't tell was recently overturned. Same-sex marriage is legal in many states, and the Defense of Marriage Act is facing federal challenges. So this is more failure is yet to come, but the sky has not fallen as predicted.
Yeah.
So there's another failure, and I call this the failure of being dicks. Okay? Many congregations are splitting over this gay issue, right? There's battle lines drawn. There is those that feel that the Bible gives them the license to be dicks towards gays. And there's those that say, well, the Bible was wrong about this witches thing. The Bible was wrong about the slavery thing. Maybe it's wrong about this gay
flood thing.
The global flood, yeah, all this stuff. And there's a whole lot of Christians that say, well, let's not be dicks. So there's many churches that are having a schism because of this, and this sucks up resources, drives people away, and reduces the power of the church. And if anything, this is the giant threat of gays to Christianity: is all the schisms that are going to happen when gays can get the right to marry and they go and ask their church to marry them, which they're welcome not to do if they don't want to, which is just fine. So another thing is that many young people are leaving religion altogether because they're tired of religious leaders who are obsessed with controlling other people's sexuality and being complete dicks about it.
Yeah.
And hooray, this is great. And with the sex scandals in the church, the hypocrisy is stunning, and a lot of young people can see that. So the silver lining is we're getting smaller, less powerful churches, and a new generation of people who are going to raise their kids without religion. So witches don't exist, but the Bible sure does give Christians a great motivation to torture and kill people, and it's basically a genocide manual as far as I'm concerned. Prohibition was a giant Christian-motivated mistake from which we have yet to recover, and you can make lots of money selling hatred of gays until it blows up in your face and the majority of people see what a dick you are. So Christian attempts at social engineering are big failures, and it begs the question of, why do you believe this stuff? So let's go to calls.
All right, so we're getting ready to go to calls here in just a second. As a reminder, after the show's over, we go to dinner at El Arroyo. I'm sure they'll put the address up for you if they're even listening in the booth.
Yeah,
they
they're
may
having
not
a
be.
chatty
Oh,
Cathy
there it
session
is,
there, yeah.
right there. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come down. And we've got Kevin in, is it Ontario?
Yes, Ontario, Canada. How are you guys today?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. First, I just want to say I appreciate that you guys allow both sides to call in, because I am in the opposition to what you guys believe. I'm a diehard believer in the Bible from cover to cover.
We actually prefer Christian callers, so you're getting favoritism.
Yeah, I'd rather not get any atheist calls.
Oh, good. Now, oh boy, I don't even know where to start here, because, I've seen so many proofs that the Bible has come through to be something that we can believe in as truth, like, prophecies that have been fulfilled before the world's eyes in our time.
If you want, we can open that up. If you want, we can open that up and unpack that and maybe talk about a prophecy.
Okay.
You called in about something specific, and just a reminder, there's only like 23 minutes left in the show, so I want to make sure you get your point when we get to discuss it a bit.
Okay, I'll try to be quick then. In Isaiah 66:8, a nation will be born in a day. That happened on May 14th, 1948, when in the UN it was voted that Israel be recognized as a state from that day forward.
How do you know that's what Isaiah was talking about?
Because of the fact that it happened, and we've seen the evidence. It happened in 1948.
No, you've got a prediction that a nation will be formed in a day, and then you go out and you pick the nation that you think was formed in a day, and you draw a connection between the two. I'm asking for what's the justification between the connection, because some might say, July 4, 1776. If you want to get so insular about, we're going to pick. Aren't all nations, as soon as their respective declarations are signed and stuff, don't they have an official day that this is the day? So in any case, even if it was the only one we had an example of, I want to know what makes you think that Isaiah was specifically talking about this one?
It's a good point. Perhaps I might not be able to answer that, except for I could put in all the other ones that say all the things that go along with it, like it would be left a desolate desert for many years, which it was. No one would be able to get anything to grow there. But when the Jews get there and the place flourishes miraculously, well, they helped too.
Have you been there?
I know that
flourishing
they are
is
a
the
leading
word.
Producer of fruits to the world in competition with their surrounding nations over there. I would call that a Bible prophecy fulfillment. Because
Okay.
I live in Canada. I bought oranges that say product of Israel. It said they would fill the fruit, that they would fill the world with fruit.
Okay. I don't have information in front of me about whether or not Israel provides more oranges than, let's say, Florida or not. And I don't really care, because when we're talking about these things, here's the thing with predictions, which is the word I'll use instead of prophecy, because I think prophecy carries baggage that you can't even begin to support. But if you make a prediction, how do you go about, what are the requirements for us to determining whether or not that prediction comes true? For one thing, it needs to be specific. It needs to be fulfillable by only a single occurrence. It needs to be something that isn't prone to interpretation at all. And it needs to be something that is non-trivial. So, for example, if I go in to a restaurant and we're going to El Arroyo tonight, I'll order chicken flautas. Am I making a prediction when the waiter brings me this? And I'm asking that because there are many occasions where you have a quote-unquote prediction that is public that many people are consistently working towards fulfilling. And so, in particular, with these predictions that are about, the state of Israel, there were many people over many, 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 many years that were actively working to fulfill it. And I don't see that there's anything miraculous about. There's nothing more miraculous about saying, hey, we're going to have a nation state of Israel, and then it ends up being true, then, hey, I'd like chicken flautas, and the waiter brings them to me.
Well, I don't know that humans would have the power to make it happen, especially after the Jews being on the brink of extinction from Hitler and the Nazis, and then they bounce back and get their nation. That's a miracle. That's pretty amazing.
Humans made it happen. This was an act of the United Nations we're talking about here. How are you attributing this to a god?
Okay, but it wasn't the Jews. It was out of their power.
Okay. So the United Nations is miraculous, not God.
Yeah, and the United Nations doesn't like that there's a God. I don't think they meant for it to happen. Okay, I'm giving you my opinion here.
You realize that the United Nations is made up of a plurality of nations, many of whom, as a matter of fact, all of them except the United States were formed with religious ideas. We were the first secular nation state.
Well, there are a lot of religious nations, yes.
That's informative to me. Thank you. But, I mean, there's more. They got there. They were attacked by surrounding nations, outnumbered army personnel, 80-1, and they miraculously won. When Hebrew hadn't even been revived yet, they're all speaking different languages, coming from other countries. How are they supposed to put together an army and defeat, 5 attacking nations that were ready and established? Within the first week they got there, and they won. It's amazing. It is a miracle from God.
Okay. I don't see it as a miracle. And I don't know enough history about the specifics to go into it, but I don't see that it's a miracle. I don't know where you get that justification. But what I had here was that you called in to provide scientific evidence of a global flood.
Okay, sure, yeah. It is easy to tell that, and it's been told by different creation scientists, and I will say specifically
there are no such thing, by the way, as
he brought so much to the world to see, and his stuff is amazing, and to turn a blind eye to it when he gives you the evidence. Layers of rock, sedimentary rock. That means settled by water. Simple enough right there. Like he says, you put water and dirt in a jar, shake it up, and it'll settle out in its densities of the different layers of what, the densities of the rock. And you can see these layers all over the world, and trees running through different layers of them. The trees being there is evidence of a global catastrophe.
Yeah, no, it's actually not. Well, it's not evidence of a global flood. I'd actually recommend that you stop by talkorigins.org. They have an index that addresses pretty much every creationist claim. Even a lot of Christians and Christian groups don't even attempt to make the claim of a global flood because it's such an absurd claim. First of all, you'd have to account for where the water came from and where it went. But I'm sure that, you can just say God miraculously made water and God miraculously made water disappear. The geological column doesn't actually support this. The ice cores that we've taken don't show any signs. They go back 40,000 years. They don't show any signs of a global flood. There are civilizations that survived from the time of the time that the flood's dated to, before and after, that don't seem to notice at all. And if you're going to argue for a global flood where God wiped out everybody except for a single family of 8, even without going to any science, even if we just stuck to your own Bible that you like so much, if you follow the timeline of the Bible, 150 years after this flood, there's a civilization that is big enough that they and have already seemingly forgotten about this God who saved their 8 ancestors 150 years ago, that they're building a Tower of Babel. That's absurd. There's no way a population could grow that fast, and even if it could, it's absurd. It reminds me of the story of the Israelites and wandering in the desert for 40 years and stuff, for which there's no archaeological evidence support for. But you've got this claim where the Israelites they're witness to all of these horrible plagues, and then God miracles the water so that they can walk across on dry land, and he leads them along by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, and feeds them manna from heaven, and leads them on towards a mountain, and Moses disappears for 40 days, and they're like, screw that God, let's make a new one. How crazy is that? The Bible doesn't make any sense on its own. And when you start taking a look at the science, which is, first of all, you said creation science, it's not science, and creation scientists. So you may find scientists who are creationists, but there's no scientific evidence supporting creationism. So when you actually look at what actual geologists have to say, for example, none of them are accepting anything like a global flood because we know too much about different ages of mountains, the different ways things are formed. the fact that the flood would cause problems with plant species not surviving, with diseases not surviving, the fact that we have different freshwater and seawater fishes, the entire claim is absolutely absurd. And there are, in fact, scientific explanations for things like trees that cross strata, and the geological column is not an example of sedimentary laydown as if it came from a single flood. I mean, it's just, and the answers are actually out here. I mean, these are things that have been raised. Granted, I don't have an encyclopedia right in front of me, and I'm not an actual geologist or a scientist of any type. But a quick Google search in 20 or 30 minutes at like talkorigins.org will give you the actual science on this and the reason why these claims don't stand.
Okay, well, you said a lot there. You mentioned where all the water came from. I do know the Bible says the fountains of the deep broke open, and these break marks are still in the ocean today.
How do you know what you... Wow. Okay, go ahead, continue.
You used to be able to buy globes in a store that would have them on it. All of a sudden, they've disappeared. I've noticed you can't buy them anymore. And I believe that's because...
We're talking plate tectonics is what we're talking about.
Okay, first of all, do you realize...
For a reason, didn't they? They must have known that those big, giant cracks in the ocean were there. They are there.
Yes, they are there. They're still on maps. There's one of them, the Marianas Trench. Is the deepest one. The thing is, I don't know where you're getting this nonsense that it doesn't appear on globes anymore. You're kind of, offering up this global conspiracy among scientists to hide the truth. Doesn't that sound crazy?
Well, no, I only say it because I've seen the evidence of it. I have a globe. I bought one, and I'm like, where do you get the ones with the break in it? The cracks.
Buy a better globe.
You can't get them anymore.
Go to Google Earth.
Okay.
But the things that there's nobody hiding anything. There's nobody trying to downplay. What's happening is people are learning, first of all, that we've made a lot of mistakes in the past, and these things that you're calling breaks with the waters coming from the deep, that concept has been entirely debunked. Because first of all, the idea that the rocks were floating on a shell is absurd. They would have actually sunk. But the breaks that you're talking about are due to tectonic plate shift on an Earth that's constantly moving. I mean, like this much about what's actually going on, and you're specifically picking the bits that seem to match what you already believe. Scientists, on the other hand, say, hey, we don't know. Is this true or is this not true? Let's follow the evidence where it goes. You're cherry-picking bits of evidence and ignoring all the other evidence, and then inventing conspiracies like amongst map makers to change the globes that we put up. I don't know. Buy a better globe.
Okay, that's fine. I've heard your argument. We could be here for a long time talking about scientific details. But let me mention this one, and I know you're going to say it's been debunked as well. But I agree with the evolution scientists on one thing. They suspected, before they landed on the moon, that the dust would be very, very deep. They suspected that their machines would sink into it. And I agree with them if we were millions of years old. But when they got there and found out that it was 3/4 of an inch deep, indicating that the universe is only under 10,000 years old.
Kevin, I'm going to ask
evidence.
Kevin.
How could you guys laugh? I just gave it to you right there.
Kevin, I'm going to ask you something, and I'm doing this not to insult you, but to try and save us time. Are you just calling in to prank call us?
Absolutely not. This is all evidence I just laid out for you.
Then I'd highly
turning a blind eye is what you're doing.
Kevin, then I'd highly recommend that you go to answersingenesis.org, which is like, are you familiar with Answers in Genesis?
I've seen it a couple times, yeah, not in detail.
Sure. Even they list the moon dust argument on a list of arguments we think creationists shouldn't use. Even some of the most batshit crazy creationists who create museums with humans coexisting with baby T-Rexes say that you shouldn't use the moon dust argument because it is utterly vapid when it comes to scientific evidence. It is one of the worst possible arguments.
I don't see how it could be because tell me this, how come Neil Armstrong was expected to just go up and stick the American flag in the dust when he had to use rocks, and it surprised him? They all suspected that their machines were going to sink into the dust and never be seen and heard from again. And they were very wrong.
Why would you think there'd be so much dust there?
Oh, because of millions of years of accumulated dust collection.
Where's it going to come from?
meteors bouncing, banging into each other, flying by. It's
The big meteors melt the rocks and things.
Here, Kevin, I'm going to do you a favor since you haven't actually gone. I went to answersingenesis.org right here, and I have their page up on the moon dust. This is a pro-creationist and even a pro-young Earth creationist site, by the way. Only a thin layer of dust covers the moon's surface. However, this does not prove a young age for the moon. Before the Apollo lunar missions, a few scientists had predicted that a yard's-thick layer of dust should be settled on the moon over billions of years. Those predictions got a lot of press, yet further satellite measurements of dust in space indicated a much smaller rate of accumulation than previously assumed. This doesn't mean that the moon is billions of years old. Modern scientists cannot know the rate of dust accumulation in the past or the amount of dust originally on the moon. Therefore, moon dust cannot be used as an age indicator one way or the other. That's from the creationists, the people who agree with you, saying, please don't use this argument because you make the rest of us look dumb.
Okay, sure. I'll admit that they can't know the rate of the accumulation. Sure, no problem. But there's many other things. I don't know if you guys watch some of these scientists. Have you ever heard of Thomas Kindle?
I don't.
Oh, no.
I don't think I know the name.
Well, anyway, his presentations are on YouTube about dinosaurs walking with man. And hey, by the way, you guys are from Texas. Have you not gone to see the Glen Rose riverbed?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a bunch of batshit crazy creationists up there too.
Are together at the same layer, same age?
Yes, we've seen him. We're familiar with him. It's nonsense.
Okay, and even though you saw it, even though you said you just saw it.
Yes.
Okay. So you saw the dinosaur footprints next to human
footprints. No, I didn't see dinosaur. No, I didn't see. I didn't see dinosaur.
By the way,
I didn't see dinosaur footprints alongside human footprints. I saw impressions that some people are determining are dinosaur footprints alongside human footprints, but when they're investigated by actual scientists, that turns out to not be true. You really, I swear, I'm not trying to be rude or mean. Go to talkorigins.org. Do a Google search for Index of Creationist Claims. There's this huge long page where every single one of these are debunked. And in your case, you're coming up with some of the most absurd. I mean, there are some difficult questions about the origins of life on Earth, the foundation, the formulation of the planet, the origin of the universe, and things like that. There are plenty of unanswered questions, and there are areas where we just don't know enough. But when creationists, specifically young Earth creationists and people who are advocating a global flood, come in, they always come in with the absolute worst arguments. They have no science behind them. These are things that are not only, they're not things where, well, we really just don't quite know yet. They're things that we know are wrong.
Okay, well, to say that these arguments are absurd would be saying that Dr. Carl Baugh, who excavated these
absurd.
Is absurd, and I don't believe the man's a liar. He's a genuine.
I don't think he's necessarily.
scientist.
I don't think he's a liar. Why would you think that the options are either he's correct or he's a liar? The other option is either he's correct or he's wrong. He's wrong. Carl Baugh's wrong.
Okay, well then it gets down to opinion. Your opinion, my opinion.
No, it's not opinion.
He said he dug it up himself. He lifted rock off, and the footprints continued on underneath the rock. He lifted up. That hadn't been moved. He had to really crack that rock up.
Kevin, it doesn't come down to opinion. It comes down to scientific evidence. And either the evidence favors Baugh's interpretation or it doesn't, and it doesn't.
I really disagree, but I do appreciate your opinion. And,
I understand that Kevin, I understand that you disagree, but you're disagreeing with science, not opinion.
I disagree with that, too. And you know what's better? These prophecies being fulfilled is better than science. Science can't explain that, the Jews should have been extinct long ago. They are survived today against all odds. That is an amazing miracle from God.
Okay.
Didn't God promise Abraham and his descendants that land that they should have been on since that promise?
Didn't God prophesy that Tyr would fall and never?
Oh, and they've been disobeying like crazy and being punished. And
that's a
because
rationalization. That wasn't in the promise.
In the desert and being spread amongst the nations of the earth, which the Bible said would happen.
Hey, you know what else they did wrong? They disagree with you on what counts as prophecy because they don't accept that Jesus guy.
Well, sure, I know, and that's why they're facing so many problems all the time. They get punished, and they will receive him in the end. The time's coming that they will accept Jesus. That's another prophecy yet to come. By the way, I want to lay you guys with a prophecy that I'm waiting for to happen right now. And no, I'm not talking about the second coming of Christ. That hasn't happened yet.
Are you sure? Because there's some post-millennialists who say it has happened.
Oh, I know, and some of them, and there are some wackos out there that we do not agree with. Not all
Boy, the
Christians
irony
agree
is
with
really
others,
thick right now.
but like Harold Camping, for instance, that show last month with Russell Glasser and yourself, Don Baker, you titled
The Failure of the Second Coming.
The Failure of the Second Coming should have been titled The Failure of Harold Camping's Prediction.
Yeah, you know what the biggest difference between you and Harold Camping is?
What's that?
Harold Camping admitted he was wrong and apologized.
Yeah, once he was proven wrong, we're all still waiting for the day to come.
Well, no. Your claims have been proven wrong. You just won't go look at the evidence to
Except
see
for
that
Israel sits there as a standing nation. I'm not wrong about that.
Well, you're correct. You're not wrong about that, but you're wrong about your connection to say that this is necessarily a miracle from God. How do you prove that? How do you demonstrate that? That's just your opinion.
I would say it's a miracle due to the fact that for 2,000 years, or approximately 2,000 years, an identity of people were spread amongst the nations of the earth and kept their identity, and they got brought back into their nation, and their Hebrew language became revived. These are all amazing.
Why is that a miracle? What is a miracle?
Because
Kevin,
the Aztecs,
Kevin,
they even had their land. They don't exist anymore.
Kevin, what's a miracle to you? Is it just something that seems unlikely? Is it a miracle when somebody wins the lottery?
No, it's a miracle, especially when the Bible predicts something's going to happen, and it happens to a T.
So a miracle is something that can be spun to confirm the Bible. That's what a miracle is. That's my working definition of a miracle.
Perhaps. I don't know. The fact, you guys can sit there and laugh, even though Israel is a nation, and it will never die. It's always going to be a nation now that it's been put back there.
Okay, we know that's not true either, because the sun, in about 8 billion years or so, is going to engulf the entire earth, and Israel will definitely cease to be a nation at that point.
That's from an evolutionist scientific point of view, but
okay, first of all, hey, Kevin, I put you on hold. Sorry, we're almost out of time. First of all, evolution deals with life. Science has nothing to do with what's going to happen to the sun. These are observed facts about the way the universe works. Don thinks that you're a Poe, that you're just calling in to be as absurd and fake as possible. I don't know whether or not that's true, but what I can say is go to Talk Origins and actually investigate whether or not your claims have any merit. And also, I'd suggest you Google Tyre, T-Y-R-E, when you're talking about biblical prophecies, because there's a prophecy in the Bible that Tyre will fall and will never be rebuilt, and yet Tyre stands today. So all of those, there's a million prophecies in the Bible and they all come true. Curiously, the people who say that things like that, they cite different things as prophecy. The prophecy is a big freaking game where you go back through the Bible and you try to find something that matches something you already know exists. That's not the way prophecy works. That's not the way any legitimate prediction should work. It's not scientific, and it doesn't tell us at all about whether or not there's a God. It's wishful thinking. On that note, we got to go. We'll see people at El Arroyo shortly. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.